flow in GP data with Power BI. Do you see that, everyone?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, excellent. Okay, so I just said what we're going to do. We're going to look at playing around in cash flow in GP using Power BI. I'm Belinda Allen. I'm a Power BI MVP. I used to be a GP MVP, but Microsoft moved me because I got so excited and I was spending so much time in the land of Excel. And when they came out with Power BI, I was so excited. They very nicely and gave me the honor of saying, hey, would you join this group of people we have working together on it? And this was before it was actually out in the new version. And I said, yes, I would love that. And then the next thing I know, I'm a Power BI MVP and no longer a GP MVP. So, but I still love GP, and GP is probably, I use the database in GP more than anything else when I'm playing, because I love ERP reporting. I love diving into ERP. I love making businesses better. Oh, I see Travis on too. Hi, Travis. And so this is something that is pretty passionate to me. And I have this session that I've done for a while, Not Your Daddy's Cash Flow. And what we're going to look at today, though, is basically new stuff. So we are building on some of the work we've done in the past. So if you haven't seen some of the earlier sessions, then I'll show you how you could go and get access to them, all these free hourly things that we do each month. And then we are also, just so you know, we're going to start moving into a more advanced instruction from here forward. So we're going to be assuming that people have the foundation, but you could watch it, absorb a lot, figure out what you want to use. And then if you still need some foundation, you can go back to the foundation. And I will send you a link where you can put any kind of comments of anything that you want to see in the future. I am looking at those before I am building out what decide what I'm going to show. So that's this session, by the way. Cash flow does not equal profit. We all know that. Sorry, allergies are getting to me, so I'm coughing a little bit. So we're going to do some fun and cool stuff. I do want to first say a special thank you to Haley and Marlena for giving me a platform in which to show this. I'm grateful to all the folks at Dexpro Dynamics. Great people, and I really totally appreciate them giving me a place and a space to share what I absolutely love. We got a couple of save the dates I'd like to go through. The next one we're going to do is next month, which is going to be on August 19th. It's going to be on sales order processing. So that one should be fun if you use sales order processing. If you don't, you might still pick up some Power BI tips, so it might be worthwhile attending. In September, the end of September, and I notice I now have these next two out of order, we have moved the accounts receivable class. We moved it from July to September. So if you still want to get in, it's an introduction class, and we'll be using AR and customer information as our method of learning. So it is from the ground up introduction. It's 3 half days, so we can get all the content in. So if you're interested in that, reach out to someone at Dexpro, or you can put a comment in the survey at the end, and that we'll take it from there. Okay, cool. And oh, Haley is catching up with us. She's putting some of this stuff in the chat. So there's the training, and then there was the sales order processing. And then coming up soon in September, and Lindsay, you're probably going, oh, shucks, because I was like on the fence. Should I do payroll or not? Should I do payroll or not? And I decided instead to go with this fun session, which I encourage everyone to attend, because we're going to take on the whole Power Platform in GP. Specifically, when we do it, and it's worthwhile attending, even if you're not an AP person, because we're going to be building a Power App. We're going to be building a Flow and Power Automate. So if you don't know what those are, this is a really good opportunity to find out what they are and learn a little bit more about them. And then I'm going to put them in a Power BI report. I'm going to put a Power App inside a Power BI report. And the end result is when you have your batches in accounts payable and you want to approve them, you go into payables or you go to Power BI and you look at the batch, and you could look at all your batches or one batch and see where everything is coded. And if you're using batch approval in GP and you see, oh, this looks right inside the Power BI report, you could literally approve the batch inside a Power BI, approve the batch inside a GP. And then not only does that happen, but then it sends an email to the payables team to let them know that that batch has been approved so it could be posted. So if you want to see Power Apps and Power Automate in action, that'll be a good time. That's actually going to be an 1.5-hour session. And after presenting it, we're going to let the people who watch it tell us if they would be interested in a real inexpensive multi-hour class where they could learn how to build out that exact same example. And I'll be there to walk them through. So stay tuned for that as we get in. And again, I will share a survey link at the end that you can go ahead and tell me what you want to see in the future and anything else. So, all right, cool. Here's our agenda for today. So let's go ahead and get started on that. Enough of the intro stuff. We're going to spend just a tiny smidgen talking about the traditional cash flow report. And then we're going to talk about dates, actual versus posting, and why we want to think about both of those. And then since we're looking at cash information, and Travis, I am so happy you are here, because when I put this in the agenda, I was thinking of you. Whether or not you want to get your data from the general ledger or for the bank rec module. And since we're talking about cash. And so I've got a little bit of pros for each one, and each pro for one of those two modules is a con for the other one. So we'll talk about that ever so briefly. We'll spend the bulk of our time building reports because I have many more visuals than I have time to show you. So it should be fun. Now, this is how the traditional cash flow statement is built out. And if you were on the call before it started, then you heard me say, I hate this statement. And it hasn't changed in years. And, all these years, 30 something years I've been in technology, a little over 30, it was 30 in January. Every time someone would give me a financial statement, I would say, hey, have you thought about changing it to do this? And have you thought about that cash flow statement? I'm like, just tell me what you want. And it hasn't changed in all these years, but it was built when you couldn't get to detail of data. Now we can. So now we live in an entirely different world. You still have to have that old one because banks want it, and the handful of people that know how to read it are happy with it, but most people don't know how to read it, including C-level people, right? You have to really be a trained accountant to understand how to read it. So what is it trying to achieve? What it's trying to achieve is trying to reveal certain pieces of information. Where did the cash come from? Did it come from revenue? Did it come from loans? Did it come from sale of stocks? Where did you spend your cash? And then what does your cash change look like over a multiple years so that some kind of forecasting can be done? So basically, we want to know, is your business thriving or do you have poor cash flow? And so we can answer all of these questions without looking at that horrible looking statement layout that I just showed you. And I showed it to you in a really kind of cool visual inside of Power BI or PowerPoint. So it could, so many more things that it could do. Travis, I see your question out there about September 14th. We don't have the link yet, but it will have it soon. Sorry, I digress. Okay, just wanted to let you know that. All right, so I wanted to show this picture. There are 4 slides from my original presentation that I've done for a long time, but we're looking at all new visuals and all new cool things today. But I did pull out the 4 slides. That was the traditional cash flow. What is it meant to reveal? And then this was this is the third one. Okay, I'm aging myself here. When I was in junior high, this was the shoe to wear. Everybody wore this Nike. It was the shoe. And it was so popular. I mean, everybody had it on. Actors, kids, everybody was wearing it. And it wasn't until, I don't know how many years ago it was, quite a few years ago, maybe 5 years ago, I read the book Shoe Dog by Phil Knight. Phil Knight is the founder of Nike. And it's an excellent book. I recommend everybody read it. Reads almost like fiction and not a business story. But while this shoe was so popular and everybody had to have it, everyone had to wear it, they were struggling to stay in business because of poor cash flow. And so that is a really astounding lesson, that they could have the it shoe on the market and yet they struggle to stay in business because of cash flow. So that's something to think about, how important cash flow is. So if your company is not vested in looking at cash flow, they definitely should be. And then the fourth slide I copied over, and this is one of my favorite ones. The image on the right, how deep is the mud? It depends who you ask. And I don't know, in my head, it relates to what I want to talk about. What I want to talk about is the fact that there are two dates inside of our data in our database. There's the general ledger date, the date in which it appear, all the data or numbers appear on the report. And if you're looking at the traditional cash flow statement, it's looking at this general ledger date, or if that's what it's based on. There's another date too, and that's the date, I wrote entry date, but depends what system you're using. In GP, we call it posted date, but that's the date that it actually updated the system. And when you're looking at your bank numbers, sometimes you want to, see how it affected your balance by that GL date, where it appears on the statement. But if you're monitoring your cash flow basis on a regular basis, you need to know why it changed since the last time you looked at it. And because if you don't, it'd be real easy for someone to slip something by you. So there are some reports that I recommend that you look at by the date it was posted, or by the date it was updated in your system, and not the general ledger date. And then by doing that, you could see why the number changed the way it did. So there'll be some times where I'll say, let's look at in the general ledger, we call it the originating posted date. In some cases, it's called the posted date, but it's actually the system date in your computer and not the date for the general ledger. So I wanted to point that out. Now, let's talk a little bit about the general ledger versus bank rec. Where do you get the data? Because the reality is they should be the same, right? They should be in balance and they should be the same. So everything on the left are pros for the general ledger transactions, and everything on the right in the green is for the bank transactions from the bank rec module. So I want to start, if you get it from the general ledger instead of bank rec, then your customer receipts are going to be automatically where you expect them to be inside of the general ledger transactions. And I wrote they're not duplicated, because if you look at them in the bank rec side, you'll have deposits and you'll also have receipts, right? So it could look duplicated if you're not absolutely careful. So you'd want to be careful about that. And that's probably one of the single biggest reasons why I like to look at it in the general ledger. Now, of course, if you're looking at it the bank rec side, if you want to know if something's cleared the bank or not, then you would need to get it from the bank transaction side. The general ledger will not show whether or not it has cleared the bank. Of course, in the general ledger, if you're doing general ledger entries directly in the general ledger, which you should not be doing, then you could get that information from the general ledger. You would not see that in the bank transactions. And over the years, I've seen some people make deposit entries that were non-customer related in the general ledger, and then they just do a deposit without receipts to update the bank rec module. So you would have some real difficulty getting that balanced out if you have a procedure like that in place. Of course, on the bank transaction side, it is a smaller set of data because you're only looking at the bank side of the transactions. But I prefer still to get it from the general ledger side. One, because there is, I don't know if we'll get to it, I might just show it to you on a PDF. There is like one way I like to look at numbers. where I need to see beyond the bank account numbers in order to do that. And that's probably one of the biggest single reasons why I prefer this particular area. Now, we're going to be building off of, I'm using a portion of the data model we've created over the last couple of lessons. And if that's something that you haven't done, I do have today's slide as a PDF. So if you fill out the survey at the end, I'll automatically send you the PDF for that. But you would just go to Dexpro and go to tips and training, and then go to the free 1 hour training and then learn more. And then you could register for the previous ones. So let's go ahead and start building out our report. Okay. So I'm going to pull up my Power BI report. And in this particular case, I'm using accounts, the calendar, which was, I think that was a DAX calendar we created, right, in one of our sessions, and then a transaction table. And I have those linked together looking like this. So the transaction table is my fact table or my data table. It is connected to the calendar based off of the transaction date. That's the general ledger date. And I am looking at GL transactions. And then I have it also connected by account number to the accounts query. And then I also went in and just updated, I'll show you some of what I did in it. I pulled up a view that a lot of people don't know about and don't use inside of GP. It's CM00500 for the bank balances. And I don't have that connected to anything. It's freestanding because it kind of acts on its own, but it shows me what the current bank balance is. And I could even see the reconciliation date and some other information. Now, before we get started, what I want to do is I also want to create another query that will tell me the last date and the time actually that the data was refreshed inside of Power BI, because I want to use that in a title. So what I'm going to do here on home menu on the ribbon, I'm going to go ahead and just select get data. And when the option comes up, I'll choose other, and I'm going to scroll down and I'm going to get the blank query. And once I get the blank query pulled up, it gives me this query, and it's called query 1. I'm going to call this last refreshed. That'll be the name of the query. And what I want to do is edit it. Now, I gave this to you already, so I'm right mouse clicking on refresh query and choosing advanced editor. I could have also gone to view and then advanced editor. And I have the code. Whoops, let me come in here and see if I can, whoop, getting carried away here. There is the code. So I'm going to go ahead and just copy it for you. And this is something that you could download. You do not need me helping you to do that. So let me come back up. We're not going to go through and build it out intentionally. So advanced editor. And let me just paste that in. So once I have it pasted in, this is just code that I don't know if someone from Microsoft wrote it or an MVP, but I mean, we could create it manually ourselves. It's just going and using a function to get the date and time as of right now. And that's the date it was going to be showing as refreshed. So we have today's date. So in theory, every time you refresh, it's going to go through and get the date as it is right now. And I took the time element away from it, so it's no longer called last refresh date time. So let me just take off the time right there. We only need the last refresh date. Okay, cool. I also, let me move that up into my dimension table or my lookup table. And then I also told you I had the bank balances here. What I did was I have this reconciled through date. And on the reconciled through date, I just went to add column date and I chose to age it, and then I turned it into a whole number so I could see how many days are unreconciled. Now keep in mind, if you reconcile your bank account today on July 22nd and you're doing it through June 30th is what would display here, not July 22nd. So this tells me how many days are unreconciled. And then I took the bank balance and the reconciled balance and got the net. So I also have the uncleared amount right here. So that's how I came up with all of that. Okay, so let's pull this up. And now I also have this last refresh date. I am not using it in conjunction with, in relation to anything else on here. I'm basically just using it for an update to show me on my report when this data is coming from, what date it was appearing as. So I'm going to leave it floating independently here. Okay, so now let me go ahead. We're going to start with a bank balance page, because looking at the current bank balances as they are right this minute is something that's pretty essential. And in a previous lesson, one of our webinars, I showed why I use a blank page here for a template. So I'm going to come in and just using this, call this bank balances, and let's give this name, bank balances. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is get the total amount of all my bank accounts. And I have that in my bank balances query. I have it over here because I have that bank balance number right here. So I'm just going to bring in a card, and I'm going to take my bank balance, and normally I would make a measure out of it, but I'm not going to do that for us today. So I've got my bank balance right here. Let me format that first of all to $1 with 2 decimal places. And then I'm sure I've showed you this before at round. So I'm going to go into the format and go to data label and change the units to none, so it's not rounding. And let's see, actually I'm going to change this name so it doesn't say bank balances. So I'm going to, with my handlebar still around it, go back to the fields view. And then here in the fields pane, I'll click on that drop down, and I'm going to rename for this visual bank balances for all accounts. I'm going to put that in. So now I have that listed right there. Okay. So that's the bank balance for all of my accounts as of right now. And what is right now? So let's deal with why I put in that last refresh amount right here, where I've got that one field. What I'm going to do here on my title name is put a space. And you might have noticed recently that this little weird box pops up. This is part of the Smart Narratives feature. And if you're on an older version, you will need to go File, Options, and Settings, and not that one, Options, and then go into Preview for the global. There it is. And let's see, is Smart Narrative still here? Doesn't look like it is. It is not. Okay, so it should be general available now. But if you're on an older version and it's not, you might need to come in here, if it doesn't show up that way, and add it. Better yet, download a newer version of Power BI, get an updated one. So when I'm up here, I have this spot. And what I want to do is continue by typing as of and then space. And now I want to click on add a value. And I have the ability to get some Q&A out of this. So I'm going to say, I'm just going to look for this field. So I'm going to type in last refresh date. And now I can see, I don't want the any of these dates. I just want that last refresh date, and it recognizes that particular field. And so now what I'm going to do is come down here, and I'm going to just give it the value name of last refresh date. So I just type that in and name the value. And now you can see it's pulling up my date. Now I don't want my date to appear with that long date field. I want it to appear like 7/22. So all I have to do is highlight my field over here and format it just like I would any other field. And now my date is formatted. Also now, once you tab off of it, you can come back in and highlight it. And then now I can come in and set the font size so it'll match. And let me shrink this up. And then let me make this longer. There we go. So now I have my date. And every time my data refreshes with a different date, when it refreshes, this is going to be updated. So if I publish this to the Power BI service, every time it refreshes, it's going to show me that as of refresh date. So if you have it set to refresh once a night, it's going to do that for you. All right, cool. Let's add in a table here. So on my table, I'm going to come in and add just a few things on my table. I'm going to open up my bank balances here because this one's all about bank balances. I'm going to get my checkbook ID, my checkbook name. I want to get the balance, the reconciled balance, the uncleared amount, the last reconciliation date or reconciled through, and the days unreconciled. Now, this is everything I'm going to have, so I can make this font a little bit bigger. So I'm just going to come in. That'll be in the grid. I'm going to make that 12, just so it's a little bigger. And now I just need to do a little bit of formatting here. So bank, we'll get the bank currency here. There we go. So it should update. Which one did I do? Bank balance. Oh, did I take that out? Oh, never checked it, did I? There we go. And then now let's get the reconciled balance. Make that $1. And I should have done all this ahead of time. I thought I would save time by connecting to it. Okay, so now that I've got those done, let me get that reconcile through date, change that so it appears with the short date format. And then on the days unreconciled, I don't want it to total because I'm only interested in the date per each individual field. So what I'm going to do for the days unreconciled, first thing I'm going to do is set it. So once I select it in the formatting area, the summarization, I'm going to change it to don't summarize. And then now in my visual, it's telling me, hey, it automatically set to sum. So I can click on that drop down and say don't sum it. Okay, so this all looks real good. Now, this is all about visually making it easier to see your cash, right? You could do a report like this. So let's start with bank balance. So if I come over into the visual pane for the fields and click on the drop down, I could choose some conditional formatting and add data bars to it. And I like data bars that are green. Oh, notice there are none. So let me cancel that. I'm going to come up to view. And I really struggle finding one that I like a lot. I just really struggle. So let's choose temperature. Okay, and then now let me come through and get the bank balance. I mean, I guess blue would have done. Conditional formatting, data bars. So a positive bar, I still don't have green, but we'll deal with that later. And then a negative bar, we'll do that. Click OK. And now I have these data bars. So I picked some lighter colors so I can see which bank account has the larger amount of money. So it makes it very, very simple. But I want to focus on these days unreconciled. And the reason, let me add in bank status too next to that. One of the reasons I want to add in the days or pay attention to the days unreconciled is because this is going to help me create confidence in my numbers. So if it's been reconciled in the last 2 weeks, then I'm going to feel really good about it. Or actually, if it's been, yeah, then if it's been reconciled in, week 3 or week 4 ago, then I still feel okay about it. But if it's longer than that, I probably just don't have any confidence in it. So I want to put some conditional formatting for the days to help me kind of do that. So what I'm going to do is click on the drop down for days unreconciled, do conditional formatting again. And I'm going to put an icon next to it just to kind of make things a little more visual for me. And I only want to apply it to the values, to the rows, not any kind of total. So first of all, I'm going to change the summarization to sum rather than count, because I don't want it to find a number like it was reconciled 6 days ago. Oh, there's only one item, one bank account with this on this row, because each row only has one. So it would assume, oh, it's all the value is 1. So I want to sum it. And the sum of 6 would be 6, right? So that's how I want to do that. I also want the icon to appear to the right of the data instead of the left, because it's a pretty wide column because of the volume of the name. Okay. So then we have our styles here. I do like this one. I also like the flag one a lot. There it is. Here's the flag one. I'll select the flags. And now I can set how I want these to appear. And I want these to appear in a bit of a different order, perhaps. So I want the red one first, then the yellow and the green. That's the order that I want them to appear. So I'm going to first say if the value is greater than 30, and I don't want to use percent, I want to do number. So if that would be 30 days. If it's more than 30 days, and then less than, and I could make this 100% if I want to, just to even it out, or I could come in and put in a whole bunch of 9s and then change that to a number. That'll work too. So if it has been reconciled more than 30 days ago, it's going to have a red flag. And then if it's less than 30 days or less, I'm going to change it to is greater than 14 and is less than 31. And both of these are numbers. So if it was reconciled between 15 and 30 days, it will have a yellow flag. And then finally, I'm going to say is greater than, I'm going to put in like a negative all those 9s, because it could have a negative days if it was reconciled with a future date, which shouldn't have happened, but I have one out there. I'm looking at Fabricam, so it's out there. So, and then is less than 15. So if it's up to 14, it would be green. And why do I have an arrow? Oh, because I need to set that to number. Okay. And need to set that one to number. And does that look right? Yep. I'm going to click OK. And now I have my flags. So anything that's negative, and I could have added a black flag in as well for negative ones, but anything that has been reconciled in the last 2 weeks will be green. If it's more than two weeks, but still less than a month, it's yellow. Otherwise, it's red. So now I know automatically with the visual indicator about my confidence level on this particular scenario. So I think this is a pretty cool report. I think it's pretty valuable, but let's keep moving along. So I'm going to come back to my blank template, duplicate again, and I'm going to call this one how cash is moving, because we want to see how cash is moving through our organization. So how cash is moving. All right. So on this one, what we're going to do is we're going to put in a scatter chart. And this is one that a lot of people don't use, but I find it to be a pretty cool view when you want to look at something over a period of time. Now, this is not something that's going to work well on a PDF file, but if you're looking at the report live, you get some real value in here. So you can compare a number in your data with two other numbers in your data to see how it reacts and how it works. So we have our panes in here that we're going to populate. So let me go through and see if I could zoom in. There we go. So hopefully I won't get you too drunk by doing this. So I wanted to, wrong one. I had my cursor on the wrong screen. There we go. That's what happens when you got 3 monitors. Okay, so we're going to start populating this. Let me select that again. And the first thing that we're going to do in the x-axis, I'm going to collapse up bank transactions. We're actually going to look at regular transactions. And I'm going to look at these based on the general ledger date for right now. There are a lot of reports I like to look at by the actual transaction date, but we're going to look at this one by the general ledger date. So the first thing that we're going to do, I'm going to do something a little weird first, and then we'll make a change to it. I'm going to take the credit, and I'm going to put the credit in the x-axis. Now, this credit is all of the lines in my general ledger that were on the credit side. Okay, and then I'm going to take the debit and put them in the y-axis. Oh, and before I forget, I only want to look at bank accounts. So I'm going to go to my account, put in account category for this page, and only select the cash. So I'm only getting the accounts that are cash accounts. All right. So now that I have these in, I now need to tell it the size of the data. And the size of the data is going to be the net amount. So this will be a net per whatever date range I want to put in, either look at it by day or look at it by month. And I'm going to look at this one by fiscal period. So I'm going to go back up to my calendar and I'm going to grab period and put it in the play axis. And in this case, you can see the period right here. It represents the year, the fiscal year, and dash the month. Okay, so that's what we have going on right now. And that's all we're going to put in for this initial piece. And so now we have this grid, and this is Fabricam data, so it's not the best as far as looking at it. But you could see we have this trend going along for our, there's a slider, if you will, at the bottom of what it looks like in the month. Now, this just tells us where we are. Then we have this axis that shows us the credit amount and the debit amount. So you could see net change right here, and it's going to grow or shrink as we go along. So if I click play, and there's not a lot of data, I could see the bigger the credit amount, the farther it'll be to the right. The smaller the credit, bigger the debit amount, the more it'll be to the top. And it's going to start going back and forth. And this is a really weird example to show, but I just wanted you to get an idea of how it looks and how you could really do this with pretty much anything. So you could see the numbers changing a little bit. Let's do a little bit of shake up with this. I'm going to zoom in one more time. And what I want to do is I want to take the, let's see, I want to get, first of all, I want to come into account. I want to get the account. This one has the account number and the account name, and I'm going to put it in the legends. And then down here for the x-axis, let's see, I want to put in actual year to date in the x-axis. And then in the y-axis, I want to get the actual month over month percent. And in the, let's see, we'll leave net there. I'm going to get rid of period. I'm going to put in the actual date on the period. Oop, that's bank. Okay. And then now I'm going to put in some more filters. So I'm going to put in a year filter. So we're not looking at all of our years. And let me change this to basic and go through and select 2027. And we'll collapse that up. Then I'm also get the month and just show the month of April. Okay. I think that's all I wanted to see. Yep. Okay. All right. So now if I play this, so actual year to date, the more money we have, the farther to the right. And then the month over month change, the more it increased because there's the zero. So anything below this line here was a decrease for the day. And anything above that line was an increase month over month for that same date. So I can get a feel for what my cash is doing. Again, this is kind of wonky cash. And I could see which of the bank accounts it is by the color that's being represented. And if I hover over it, my tooltip is going to tell me, okay, this was the bank account. This was the actual amount. This was the month over month change. This is what was the net change. And then I could see what date it's representing. So if I come in again and I pause right there, this is looking at April 3rd. And if I click again, but here's where the more transactions you have, I've got a lot of dates with no transactions. The more transactions you have, the more you'll be able to see things. So the more powerful it becomes. Let's come back and add another one. So I'm going to duplicate again. And this one we're going to call the cash analysis. So, all right. So for this one, we're going to, let's see, I'm going to put in a slicer. Come on, put it at the top. And I want to grab the year in my slicer. And I want this to be a, oh, hang on, let me do it like this so I can get that drop down. I want this to be a drop down list. And I'm going to change that so that I have to select at least one. And I'm going to come and grab 2027. Okay, so there is my year slicer. And now what I'm going to do is add in that decomp tree. And we looked at the decomp tree a couple of them ago. And so for this one, I need to get my list closed so I can see. Oh, I have it over here. I'll be able to figure it out. Okay. We have to first tell it what we want to analyze. And what we want to analyze here is the actual year to date. I'm going to put that in here, the actual year to date amount. And then I tell it what I want to explain by in here. And the explain bys that I put in are series. Where did it come from? And then I also have month. So which of the months are doing better than others? And then I have department ID coming from my account, if there was a department ID. And then let's see, I also want to get the account number itself. So get the account. And while I'm here, let me go ahead and filter this page to only be cash. All right. I'm not sure if I did that on that last page. I need to go back and check that. And then let's see. So I got account number and then account number. Okay. And then I want the subledger. So I'm going to come in and grab the subledger and put that in. Okay. So let's go back and zoom. Actually, I'm curious now. Did I? No, yeah, I did. Okay. Just wanted to make sure. Okay. So now if I click on this actual year-to-date amount, I could go in and say, okay, this is my year-to-date amount for 2027. I have that in my filter. So of all of these explained by, which ones have the most relevance where there's something that makes it higher than others? So I'm going to choose high. And it seems to be that what comes from the financial module, right? For the financial series. These are the ones that have a bigger increase to my balance. So if I click high again, then I could see March has the biggest month. And if I keep clicking high all the way along, okay, department 000, no surprise there. I think all my cash accounts are just 00. It's this bank account. I'm going to click high again. And then now I see this subledger. Okay, so if I came down and selected sales, notice that, well, look at the difference. So this one is department ID. So the third one's department. But if I select sales, then the third one, third one becomes account. So I'm looking at the difference between my accounts. So I can see Plaza 1 seems to be one of the biggest variants there. I'm going to get rid of department and account number. So I could see from the cells that my Astor Suite seems to be one of the larger ones for April. Oops. Let me come in and just do it this way. I'm going to come in and select subledger. There we go. So now I can look through all of my entries here and see how they all compare. So this is another way that I could use some AI to evaluate what's going on in my cash. Let's have a little bit of analysis fun. So we're going to call this one analysis fun. Oops. Sometimes when you get off that, it doesn't, you lose your formatting. And analysis, move my mouse and I can see analysis fun. Okay, so what we're going to do here is I want to have maybe a table that shows me every day what my bank account balance is. So I'm just going to grab a little table here and populate it, just stretch it out long because it's going to be really long. And so what I want to get, let me close up some of these so we could start over again. We're just going to populate in our values. So I'm going to do this by general ledger date. So I'm going to grab the date from the calendar and put it in the values. And then from my transaction list, I'm going to come in and get the actual year to dates. Now, I need to put in, we have unit accounts. That's why we don't have 0 here. But when I come into accounts and I distinguish that this is just for cash, and then I also come in and put in a year for my calendar. So I'm going to grab a year and I'm going to set this to basic, 2027. Now you could see I have for every day of the year, I have the year-to-date balance. So it doesn't look like anything changes on the first 10 days. And then we have a change, and this is Fabricam data, so it's a bit wonky. So this is one of the first visuals that we have here. And this looks really good, but I'm going to copy and paste it. And you might want to keep in mind, if you'd want to look at the general ledger session that we did, because I talk about how to handle beginning balances in that with GP specifically. So I'm going to just reshape this one. I'm going to do something a little bit different here. So it's still a table with date and the actual value. What I'm going to do is change this to a line and clustered column chart. Now, the fact that I'm looking at every single day, these are actually columns. So it looks kind of like the area one, and you could use either one. Doesn't really matter. They both have pretty much the same effect. But I like this one because I want to use the line value as well. Although here you do have a secondary value that would serve the same purpose. Okay, so this is my actual, so now this is something that's really kind of cool because I could even see little dips in here. So I could tell where things happen. And one of the cool things about this is if I were to put in, let's say, let me come in here and put in a date query for this page. And I came in and I'm going to just do advanced filtering. So I could say is on or after, let me go through, I don't know what date that is. Let's say 4/1/2027 and on or before 4/30/2027. I'm going to apply that filter for a moment. So you can see I have this little dip here. And if I right mouse click on that little dip, then I can come in, I've got this analyze option, and I can explain the decrease. And if I click on this, it's going to try to help explain the decrease for me. So it's going to show me, oh, computer checks and accounts receivable. And it's going to, here there was some financial increases here, but we paid some purchasing. So I might want to look at that. But I get some of these options as well. And it always compares to the column to the left. So that's what we're looking at. And I could even see where it's different. So now it's trying to get very specific for me and look at actual data, line by line data that's in there to try to help me figure out why indeed it is different. Now I'm going to come back to this. Now that I have my net cash, what if I want to see my sales on top of this? So I want to see what my sales are in relation to into these numbers. Which of these, what are the sales transactions, things that come from the sales series? How did they contribute? So these would be cash receipts from customers. So what I'm going to do is, I'll zoom in here. Let me collapse that. Under transactions, I'm going to add a quick measure, and I could longhand this if I want to, but I'm going to come in and do a filtered value. And so the value that I want to get is that actual year-to-date number, because that's what we've been, that's what we have on the other screen, right, on that visual. So I want to use the same field, but I want to filter this by the series. So I'm going to come in and put series in the filter. When I click on the drop down right here, okay, why are you not working for me? Oh, okay, let me try it one more time without zooming. All right, so I want actual year-to-date. And on the series, I'll put in filter. And now when I click on the drop down, I should be getting all of, ah, I should be getting my series. This usually works. Let's try it one more time. Filtered value base. Actually, oh, you know what? Let me try net. And, oh, net, that's probably why. Yeah. No. Come on. And why net? Huh. Yeah, that's what I'm interested in, net sales here. And the parameter would be series. Okay, so guess what we're going to do? We're going to add in our own measure. We'll call this one net sales by date. And then I'm going to call this, let's see, calculate. Hopefully I can get this summed out the way I want. Sum net. Actually, I don't need to sum, do I? Net, comma, and the filter will be the series is equal to sales. There we go. And let's try to add that in and see if it works. Let's slap it up there and put it in the line value. There we go. All right. So manually did it. That worked out the same way. All right. So here is my net sales, what my net sales is doing on a day-by-day basis as compared to the values over here. So this was also interesting to see this side by side. And I could likewise also do the same thing with payables. And I'd want I don't know if I'd want the payables to show up credit as a negative so I could see them, but I could really kind of get a feel for, like, so here was a spike in money coming in from sales, but if you look behind it, there wasn't a spike in the different, well, it wasn't much of a spike, maybe that's why, but there wasn't much of a difference to our bank account affected by that. So I think that's really kind of interesting as well. Another thing I want to do here is I'm going to come in and add another table here. And on this table, I'm going to come up and I'm going to go to the calendar and I'm going to get the date of the transaction. I'm going to add in the series just so we have something fun. We'll add in the series, and then I'm going to get the debit amount and then the credit amount. And then what I want to also get is the originating posting date. This is the date the transaction actually happened in the system. And this was something I did for Travis, and this is something I really thought was interesting because it wasn't something I thought much about. So in this particular scenario, I want to be able to see the transactions that updated in the last 5 days, maybe. And I could also see what date the general ledger was accordingly. So one of the things I could do in here in the filter is on the originating posting date, if I were to open this up and instead of doing a basic filtering and having to look at this each time, I don't want to do a relative date either, because a relative date is it's going to take whatever today's date is and go backward X days. So maybe I want to just look at a certain number of dates. I'll do a top in. And on the top in, I'm going to go in and say, I want to see the last 5 dates, the last 5 original posting dates. And so I want to see the top 5. So I'm going to add in the original posting dates in the value here. What? Boo-booed. Top 5. Top 5. And let's see, by date value here. There we go. And I don't want the earliest posting dates. I want the latest posting dates. And I'm going to apply that filter. And so now I'm only looking at the transactions that happened the last 5 days that were posted. And this is Fabricam, it's out in the future. So these are the transactions from the last 5 dates that were posted. And so I could see what change occurred and when it occurred. So this is something also that I think is pretty cool. I want to just quickly show you a couple other reports because as always, I am running behind, but I will PDF this up and share it with you guys. I did have the slide available for you, but here's where you could get that slide deck where you could, or that form where you could fill out the slides. And then meanwhile, I'm going to go ahead and open up, where is it? Let me get my folder and open up the other reports I wanted to show you. Okay, so here we go. If I could get this, pull this in. Okay, so this is another fun one. And in this one, I went in and added a custom visual, and I did a lookup on calendar. This is one of my favorite ones. And what I did is I added a gradient color to it. So I'm looking at the net change for every day of a month. And I could select what month I want in the fiscal period. And the days with the bigger amounts are red. The days with are the bigger negatives where I spent more money than I received are red. Ones where I got the most money in, where it increased the most is green, and then there are gradients of yellow in between. So I could literally see visually, again, what's going on with my value. And immediately, if this were your data and I were looking at it, my assumption would be that you posted payroll checks or payables checks, you created payables run, maybe you do once a month, and that's the day that you happen to do the run. And so that would be my first thought. I also like taking the net change and putting it in a line graph. When you do this, you want to put the individual day across the bottom. It gets a little bit more interesting. Then you could use the anomaly feature, and on the anomaly feature, you can go through and see what looks out of place and what's interesting. And if you have a question about that, I could take it at the end. Here's another one I like to look at by actual date. And this is interesting because these are not net numbers. In one side, I'm looking at, I call this the subledger. So this would be the vendor or the customer. Or in the case of general ledger, it would have a general ledger line. And you could put in the last X of them or set it for the last number of days. The inflow ones only looks at the debit side of the entries, and the outflows only look at the credits. So yes, if you are correcting an error, it's going to appear on here, but that's okay, because this one is literally going to tell you why your number changed in the last X days based on that top end scenario I gave you. So you could get a feel from basically, in our company, we call this where the money goes. So we could see not only where it comes from, but we could see where it goes in the last X number of times. And this is when I really started paying attention to that originating posting date as being something valuable, because if you're managing cash, you don't really care about when it affects the general ledger. Not really. Not if you're really just trying to see if you have cash coming in and cash going out, whether or not your business is thriving. You want to know what changed since that balance since the last time you were looking at it. And then finally, this is page 1 of 2. Normally I put these all on one page, but the other page looks pretty much the same. I like to take and put in a bar chart, select months. Maybe I'll only put 3 or 4 months, so 3 full months and then the current month. And I look at the net change to cash compared to AR compared to sales. And it tells me what's going on. So if I was looking at this one, I would see, all right, my cash went down a lot in December. My AR went up significantly, but my sales didn't go up. I don't even have sales for December. So I would want to know, okay, well, why did my AR go so significantly? And obviously money didn't come in from sales. So it must've been all expense, which explains why it's negative. So on the same report, I like to look at also compared to the changes by month to AP. Look, my AP went up. So it's interesting, my cash went way down and my AP went up. So a question that I might have is, okay, I must have spent a lot. I must have a lot of invoices. And if I look over here at my inventory and cost of goods sold, if you have distribution, you probably want to lump those together because you could buy inventory and sell it in the same month. Or you might want to even compare this to net profit. I could see it went up as well. So what I could learn from this is I had no sales in September. My AR went way up. I also had a lot of invoices and payables for inventory and cost of goods sold. So I know now when it comes to cash management, I need to find out what happened to my sales in December, and I need to find out why did we spend so much money on inventory and cost of goods sold. So these are looking at these page reports on the side. Normally I don't repeat cash flow. I don't do them separate. I put them all together, and I'll also have a profit and loss. And you might even want to have something that is relevant, like what are our payroll costs or something that's relevant. And you could look at everything side by side and see where the money is really going and where you need to focus your attention. So I think that's a really interesting one as well. But beyond that, I do want to say another special thanks to the Dexpro team for giving me a place to go. And if you go to bit.ly/Dexpro Belinda, it is case sensitive, or use this, or use the QR code that I have listed here. I will put this in the chat as well. Okay, do you guys have any specific questions? I know I went through that really fast. Comments? Oh, there's Marlena even.
Yes, hi. Thank you everyone for joining. Thank you, Belinda, for another great session. And if anyone needs further assistance with GP or Power GP Online, let us know.
Yep. Any comments?
Mr. Travis, I was just wondering if you ever see any implementations of forecasting cash flow using GP, or if it's just not viable.
Yes. What you could do, especially with that one visual that I was showing you guys. So first of all, let's come in and just narrow this down to cash accounts, or you could put in a specific account. You don't have to use the categories. You could put in a specific account. So there are a couple ways that you can do it, but one that a lot of people will do is they'll come in and they'll say, oh, let me also get, I'll just put everything out there. So I'm going to put the date in the axis, and then I'm going to get the net and put it in the value. All right, so we basically have our little heartbeat thing going right here. Probably also want to exclude beginning balances, which I did not account for excluding beginning balances, but if you do this, you would want to make sure you keep your beginning balances so you can get rid of them. You could keep, I would keep the period ID, and then in the period ID, you can, in the transactions, if it's 0, then you know it's a beginning balance. So you only want to see the net change here. But when you do this on this visual, one way you could do it is to click on the analytics option here. There is a forecast option that you could click on to add, and you could forecast out like 2 months. So change that to months and apply. And then when I do this, did I go too far? Let me keep points. No. Let me look. All right, we'll keep points and make that 10. I could originally wanted. Oh, I do not have, my data is too irregular. That's why I can't do my forecast. But you could come out here because this is Fabricam data. There's not a lot of data in here. Maybe I can get 2 years in. Nope. Okay, so it's just far too sporadic for me to get this. But this is one way that you could come in and do a filter here. Let's see, let's see if I can do that. No, it's still not going to let me. But normally you would end up with this little funnel here. You can see I get this error message and it's just telling me it's far too irregular. The smarter Power BI gets, the more it will pull up things like that. So also we have that anomaly I talked about. If I get rid of my forecast or my attempt to forecast, I might have too irregular data for the anomaly as well. Nope, I didn't. So in here, you get the idea on this. So let me zoom in right here. So when you're on one of these points, you get this expected value and you get this this minimum value and maximum value, and the forecast would do something similar. It would come up with the expected value and the minimum and the max based off of what it's learned about your data. And so it would give you this grade area that shows you what it would end up looking like. And in this case, the anomaly looks backwards. So it doesn't work when you have a forecast on, so you got to look at one or the other. The anomaly, though, is going backwards and looking at past things. And then if you fell outside of what the forecast was based off of your data, it will pop up as an anomaly where the forecast just gives you a range. So that's one way that you could do forecasting directly within your data, is you can get that little that same kind of wizard range with it. So whoops, and I accidentally clicked on it. When you click on it, you get explanations that kind of help you try to figure out why you have anomalies. So if I were to come back in here, I don't know what I have selected. Oh, there we go. Okay. So if I came back in here and went to my anomalies, let me make them more sensitive. Oh, let me make them much less sensitive. Still not. Let's try again. Oh, that's the percentile line. No wonder. Okay. Anomaly. Oh. Normally, the lower the sensitivity, the fewer anomalies you'll find, because there you could see a little bit here, and then we got rid of one of them. Because the grade area becomes larger, meaning the expected high and expected low becomes larger. So the lower the sensitivity, the fewer the anomalies that you'll have. And but you'll still end up with some. So here is some where you could see the anomaly, the expected values, it did expect to go up based on what it found, but it actually went up higher than they thought. So that's one way right out of the box that you could do some forecasting of what budget should actually be. And of course, if you create your own calculation on what it should be, you should be able to do something in DAX to be able to make that happen as well. That's a good question, though.
Can I add one more question that
Of course
pertains to this? Could you add a spreadsheet then to do CapEx spend and forecast your CapEx spend in there?
Let's see. Oh yeah, well, if you have a spreadsheet with that in there, yeah, you could bring in
Yeah.
anything on a spreadsheet.
Because we're building a new building and they want to make sure we have enough cash for this new building and to figure out when this building will be paid off. So I think that would be the easiest way, because with a new building, BI won't understand, it won't use past data to be able to do that for me, right? Because it's not there. It's a one-off
Right,
situation.
right. Yeah, you could definitely do that. And then if it's in a common place in a spreadsheet, like maybe a SharePoint folder,
Mhm.
then you it could update automatically, because it doesn't have to be just GP data in here. You can connect
Right.
to any other data source as well. So
Okay.
it's very common for people to connect Excel and GP together in a single report to get what they need.
I'm excited for this. I'm going to
Yeah,
be able to do
yeah.
a cash forecast sooner than later.
Yeah, it's kind of fun playing around with some of these things. I mean, there's so many options that you could learn. Whoop, I don't want to delete that you could learn from your data. And what I'll do, I will go ahead and create this. If you fill out that form, anomalies. If you fill out that form, then, oh, that did not spell that right. I always, anomalies. Is this right, isn't it? No, that's not right. Will it fix it? Okay. Weirdness. There we go. Okay. Now we got this one where it is. I will create a template for this, because I do have this set up with parameters. So when you get the template, if you just double click on it, you'll be prompted for your SQL and your company login, your SQL instance and your company login. So you
Yep.
could populate it. And I am using the out of the box accounts table.
Okay.
The SM00500 table, and the out of the box view, they're all views rather, accounts transactions. So accounts, transactions, and SM00500. Those are all out of the box views. You just need to make sure you have access to those. Easy way to do it if you know the SA password. I don't recommend this normally, but if you want to look at it with your own data and play with it, then go ahead and click on the SA password. The calendar is set up for a fiscal year. That is a calendar year. But other than that, it would work for you, right? All of these would work for you right out of the box, and you can play with them. Yep, cool. All right, with that said, oh, and Lindsay asked where you could get a copy of the video. Haley will have it posted within a week or so. So if you were to go back to the website, to the same place that I shared, let me see if I could get to that slide. Yeah, so from the slide deck, if you go back to the same place in about a week, tips and training, free 1-hour trainings, you should see it down listed below. It's me and my wonderful friend, Ms. Amber Bell, right there. And we'll get it going. And oh, she also put in, she is on top of things. She also put in some information, all kinds of stuff. So excellent. All right, cool. Well, thank you everybody for letting me show you some of my fun things that I've been playing with. I'm probably the only one that would literally write analysis fun for some cash reports, but they are fun to me. And I think they might be interesting to you as well. So thanks for your time, and I hope I see you next month.
Thank you.
Thanks, bye.